All right, a bunch of unexpected things with this video. One, what's going on with the bushes? There aren't any bushes here. This is the best I could do. Two, oh snap, this is the autofocus Corvette ZR1 review. Yeah, that's a little unexpected. Three, wait a second, it's not cold, there's no snow behind you. Yes, that's true, and that's exactly what we needed to review this car. And four, all right, you've probably seen at this point a bunch of videos about this car, the Corvette C8 ZR1. It's gotten a lot of attention, it's really good. And so I'm gonna keep the unexpected train going, and I'm going to do a bunch of comparisons to the Tesla Model S Plaid. Now I know, that's not what you want to hear about when talking about one of the most impressive gas cars on the face of the planet, but this is autofocus, this is the tech angle, this is the stuff that I usually talk about. We'll get to that in a second. So as I've been driving this car and learning a lot about it and actually living with it, I feel like there are a lot of comparisons, and it's in a good way, all right? Let's just start with the basics. So as a great Jason once said, when you review a ZR1, you're actually reviewing two cars. One is the performance envelope of ZR1, which we'll get to later in this video. But two is just the generation of car itself, the C8 Corvette. And the C8 has already appeared on this channel. I've already had the Z06 here, liked that a lot. The E-Ray, I like that more than most people. Now we're looking at ZR1, which is at the time of recording the second highest end version, right underneath ZR1X, which is another insane beast, but don't even worry about that. The numbers are still ridiculous. This is a 5.5 liter flat plane crank twin turbo V8 that's making 1,064 horsepower, and it's making it all to the rear wheels on a mid-engine sports car that costs a little over $200,000. The C8 has been beloved since it first came out, since the very first base car, all the way up as they've worked their way up the lineup to the highest end versions. And that brings me to my first comparison with the Model S Plaid. Stick with me. American-made success story in a very powerful 1,000 horsepower car suddenly becoming attainable, becoming the norm. Now, $200,000 plus is very expensive for a car, obviously. But when you consider the performance that this thing is capable of, you could consider this a performance bargain. Very much the same way the Model S Plaid came along and very quickly made it ridiculously accessible for people to just have 1,000 horsepower cars on the street for, you know, $100-something thousand. This is the same thing for the supercar world. This is 1,000 horsepower without any electric assist and brings levels of performance that match or exceed cars 2, 3, 4, 5 times its price. Now, another kind of hot take I had about Model S Plaid was that it's an American muscle car success story. I don't have to die on that hill. But another thing you can say about the Chevy Corvette, the C8, this has been a success story for Chevy in America as well. They've been building out this mid-engine platform thing for a while. This is the LT7 in the back, making all that power, again, like I said, with no electrical assist. And people are loving the C8. But this ZR1 version, as you've probably seen in a bunch of other videos about this thing by now, is an even more track-focused, aero-focused, hardcore version of the C8. And this is doing things aesthetically that no Tesla ever has. You see all this aggressive aero up at the front here. It's all carbon fiber too and super low to the ground. This front, this is actually kind of hilarious. I want to show you this right away. This front radiator, which kind of reminds me of what you might see in a GT3 RS, all but eliminates the front trunk, but there's still a button to open the front trunk. So I went to go check to see what kind of storage I could get in the front. And okay, technically you could put something there, but also this is the heat spreader is right here. So anything you put in here is just going to get lit on fire basically. So that's not really a front trunk. So don't put anything in there, but just like the Model S Plaid, this is one of the most practical, ridiculously high-end performance cars because the C8 still has this big deck lid at the back that opens up to this trunk behind the LT7. That is a lot of trunk space for a car like this. I've got my duffel bag down here that I've packed for my day trip, which has everything I need to come out to California to shoot a car like this. Got my backpack here, but I've also fit a full-on carry-on bag in here, like a hard shell bag. It's got this net if you want to do groceries. Heck, I could take all this stuff out and fit a full set of golf clubs, which is crazy. It's not something you'd normally say. Now, you do have to reach around this enormous fixed carbon fiber wing. But that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make, I would say, because the amount of downforce that comes from this wing is significant. So yeah, I'll deal with reaching over and around the wing to put my stuff in there. Also soft close deck lid, split window. Beautiful. Now, if this was a forest video, I'd be pointing out all of the functional aero bits on this car and all the massive amounts of air that go in here and also in here and also in here, and how they're all carbon fiber, and how the engine bay also is covered in carbon fiber and radiates heat all the time, and the huge wing on the back. But just like the Model S Plaid, there's also a ton of mechanical grip too. These are 345 section tires on the back, and these Pilot Sport 4S's grip, amazing, just like they did on my Plaid. It has been really fun to drive this car around here, where a lot of people recognize it as a ZR1 because there are obviously huge visual elements that can tell you it's a ZR1. The Plaid just had like the badge and was a little wider and had fender flares, and if you know, you know, but this one is getting quite a bit of attention. It's also basically iPhone 17 Pro orange. But let's get into the car. Handles hidden down there under that carbon fiber. It says ZR1 here, and then we get to the very practical interior. Now, you know, the more of these crazy high-performance sports cars you get to drive, the more you'll notice there's like a spectrum of them. There is the soft grand touring stuff over here, and then there's the crazy hard-ass high-performance versions over here. And as you get further and further towards the crazy high-performance stuff, they get more bare and more racy and more raw. This one is extremely racy and very track focused, and yet has an interior like none of the rest of those cars, because it's still a Corvette. Corvette, all of it, the same as you've seen before. This is a little bit improved. So they used to have that huge row of buttons here in the last generation. So this little facelifted interior moves all the HVAC buttons to right here, which I really like. Fan speed up and down, temperature up and down, that's all super easy. Right away, it loads my Android Auto wirelessly. That's great. Yes, I was just at in and out. And so this is a very practical, livable daily car that just happens to have 1,000 horsepower rear wheel drive. And if you remember back just like 2 or 3 years ago, that's what a lot of people were saying about Model S Plaid. How does this grocery getter just beat hypercars in a straight line? It's a fifth of the price, and yet I can just go pick up the kids from daycare in it and also beat Ferraris in a straight line. It just didn't compute. You could live with a car with ridiculous performance like that. Now, this isn't a grocery getter by any means, but I showed you the storage in the back, and there's all sorts of other really nice things. There's obviously leather everywhere. This headliner is really nice. It's built really well, and there are creature comforts that you just don't expect to find in a track-focused car like this. For example, this is a wireless charger up front here. You just slide your phone under here, it starts wireless charging, and you might notice it's got this little hinge here to hold things in place, because the second you start driving this car, especially on roads like this, it's likely to slip out and fly all the way around. So they've sort of pinned the phone down here cleverly so it doesn't slide out when you accelerate, which are 1,000 horsepower. 2 cup holders, that's nice. Another wireless charger back here, that's nice. This is the rearview mirror. Now you might think that's not very useful with the engine and the split window back there, but of course, it's a camera too. So you got your rear visibility anytime you need it there. If I throw it into reverse here, this reverse camera is great, and as you could also see and drive, that is my wireless CarPlay. I just paired my phone and it's got Bose speakers and wireless CarPlay, just like every other Corvette. It's even got a little touchscreen over here so you can decide what sort of information you want to see. I like to see my temperatures usually. It's just like a normal daily grocery getter Corvette. It's great. So the last comparison that I'll make to my former Model S Plaid RIP is that, you know, I'm going to hand this over to Miles in a second. He's going to go over driving with this car, you know, the performance envelope of the ZR1 type of stuff. But I've also driven with it, lived with it for a little bit, and I will say that it is kind of like a split personality type of car. At low speeds, at low RPMs, it is shockingly livable and easy to drive. Anything under about 3,000 RPM, it's smooth, it rolls onto power, you're not stamping your foot down, it's very reasonable. This is actually kind of quiet for as loud as this car can get. The flat plane crank gets super loud and has this almost Ferrari-like sound, and it's amazing, and you'll hear it in a second, but it's fairly docile and tame in a way that 1,000 horsepower cars 10 years ago just never were. So that's super, super cool, and it brings this level of performance down to a place we've kind of never seen it before. This car being $200,000 is crazy. Okay, that's enough of my comparing it to Tesla's Miles. Take it away. How does it drive?
The biggest debate surrounding this car has been people trying to determine if this is a supercar or not. There's lots of people that are in the camp of, yes, this is a supercar. There's lots of people that are in the camp of, while this does perform amazingly, it's still not technically a supercar. And I think when you're a brand that doesn't only make supercars and hypercars, and you build something that then puts that into question, is it a supercar or not? I think that alone speaks volumes as to what you've accomplished. What I think this car has definitely excelled in doing is combining all the supercar, hypercar thrills of some of the most iconic performance cars ever made and stuffing it into a GT body that you could genuinely daily drive depending on what your average day looks like. And when you've got it in comfort suspension, the ride quality is fantastic. You could genuinely crush thousands of miles in this car and not break a sweat. But then as soon as you click this Z button on the steering wheel, everything changes. You've got a twin turbo, flat plane crank, V8 that revs to 8,000 RPM, a snappy dual clutch transmission. This is a really fun car to drive, but it's also incredibly approachable. You hear 1,000 horsepower and rear wheel drive and you think, yeah, this car is going to be pretty much unusable. And yes, when you're really pushing the car, it's not warm outside and the tires are still cold. Yeah, it's not super usable, but they've effectively implemented boost by gear with this ZR1, so you're not really feeling that full 1,000 horsepower until you get higher up in the gears. Once you start pushing it around third and fourth gear, that's when you really feel like, yeah, I'm in something serious. This ain't a Stingray. And despite this car being absolutely massive, it handles really well. The grip levels are insane, especially with the ZTK package, this massive dinner table size wing behind me. So this car is pretty much ready to take to the track out of the box, and you'll be running some amazing times if you know what you're doing. Or even if you don't know what you're doing, because this car is incredibly approachable for novice drivers. It sounds absolutely fantastic. Easily one of the best sounding cars on sale right now. Yes, there is some pumped in engine sound noise, but quite honestly, I don't mind it because you're also getting lots of pops and real cracks from the exhaust system behind you. Unlike other supercars and hypercars out there, not only does this car nail the top-end performance, but it also nails the street driving theatrics, meaning you don't have to be driving this car at 10/10ths to really enjoy the experience. If you put a Ferrari 296, a McLaren 750S, and a ZR1 in front of me and said you have to pick one car to take on a 1,200-mile road trip across the country, I'm picking this one. Because just like the now deceased Model S Plaid, this car is bringing hypercar performance to the table without any significant compromise for a car of this kind, for a GT two-seater car. And so while yes, this isn't going to give you the same supercar experience that like the Lamborghini Temerario will or the Ferrari 296 will, it's bringing supercar performance to the table in a package that still offers that supercar thrill and excitement from a visual perspective, from a sound perspective, and it also just happens to be incredibly usable as well. I see that as an absolute win, especially for it costing like half of the cost of its competition, and sometimes an eighth of the cost of its competition. So, hats off to Chevy. They've done it yet again. ZR1 remains king of the hill. Talk to you guys in the next one. Never gets old.